Okay, so let us start second unit, that is testing. Again, we are starting with the same topic called testing. Here they have mentioned what is testing and why is testing needed. Here, testing is a process of all life cycle activities to determine that a product satisfies the specified requirements. Here we check if all the requirements which are mentioned in the SRS documents, okay, are properly done and they are converted actually into the functionality which is fit for purpose, or the requirements which are taken from the customer is actually done, or all the requirements which are mentioned in the SRS is properly converted into the functionality which is as per the requirement from the customer. उसके उसके लिए we do what? We do testing. That is, we check whatever it is done or whatever it is designed is as per SRS. Okay. Again, we are repeating the same. What like we that is what we have to mention in testing. Okay. So here why we actually do testing here, testing, software testing actually means we are trying to detect the defects, okay, which leads to the failure. See, as I told you, whenever we are trying to detect the defects, we categorize them into the severity, लो हाई, कैटेस्ट्रोफिक जो भी है, वो हम उसके हिसाब से हम वो टेबल बनाते हैं, एंड वी पुट देम इन दैट पर्टिकुलर कैटेगरी, right, and accordingly we try to resolve them. Okay, and finding this defects helps in understanding the risk associated with using the software, and fixing the defect improves the quality of the software. In the last lecture, we were all concentrating on the topic quality. Right now, how we get that quality? We find the defects, okay, categorize them, and we try to solve those defects in such a way that we try to make sure that the defect which is actually affecting our software is detected first, I mean solved first, and then we go on to the later ones. So that is how we try to improve the quality of the software. And one more point is we try to analyze the defect at as early as possible, and we try to analyze them as early as possible. Like for example, if we try starting taking the requirement, there only we see what all could be the defects which can occur in such kind of requirement. Then we go to analyze. Then we go to what you say, designing. Designing में जितना हो सके वहां से ही defects निकालो, and then we go to the coding part. Why we try to analyze the defects as early as possible, then we have less rework. Okay, so analyzing the defects at the earliest is the best thing which what we can do to make fewer mistakes. Okay, necessity of testing. It's all simple, you can read and understand. See how we have software development process. Similarly, we have fundamental test process. That is, testing also requires its own planning. It also requires analysis. It requires execution and other activities. Okay. In SDLC, you have testing as a part of that development. और testing के अंदर भी we have different processes. Like वो test करने के लिए भी you have to plan, you have to analyze, design, execute. Okay, so testing के अंदर you have different set of process. So here first thing is test planning and control. Now, what is the test planning and control? Here we are planning what how to where to start, how to start scheduling, when to end entry criteria, exit criteria. All this comes into picture. Okay, and here all testing is based upon good test planning. Here we have to decide the scope and risk of testing, deciding the overall approach of testing, scheduling test analysis, assigning resources to different activities. So ये resources assign करना, scheduling करना, or and person and time allot करना, everything is done in our test planning and control. See, under test control, you have to measure and analyze the result, reviews and testing, to monitor and document progress, test coverage, and exit criteria. Now, what is this document progress? Matlab, whatever we have, mentioned in the documentation. Okay, are we going as per that level or not? Okay, so that we are checking here. Test coverage means what? We have test coverage and exit criteria. What does that mean? Test coverage is what? So we will plan ki what all has to be tested. Okay. So you have statement coverage. For example, you have a code of 10 lines. Okay. And there you will check the test coverage, whether all the lines have been covered or only few lines have been covered. Also, that has to be taken care of. वो भी हमको देखना जरूरी है. Okay, exit criteria means what? What do you mean by exit criteria? If you are given a software, at least 50, at least 70% of the software has to be tested and defect has to be checked. Okay, and solved. Then only you can come out of the testing and go to the next level. So there is always exit criteria which is given by the organization, and you have to make sure that you follow all the protocols, and then only you exit from that testing field. Okay, so it is not that testing is just referring to testing the code. You have various things which is being done under testing. You can go through what do you say, formal testing, and you can even go through informal testing. Now, what is that informal and formal? I think you are aware about. Informal is you are just telling your person next sitting to you, or another colleague who is a programmer, to test your code and check कि ये properly लिखा है कि नहीं. That's all. That is informal, peer to peer checking. Okay, peer to peer review, you can say. Now, what is formal checking? Formal is inspection. Okay, that we can come, we will be I will explaining in detail, but now I'm just giving you a review. तो यहाँ पर फॉर्मल मतलब क्या हुआ? इंस्पेक्शन हुआ. इंस्पेक्शन मीन्स व्हाट? A proper person will be appointed to check your coding. Okay, the person who is writing the code is called as an author. Okay, author is a programmer. Okay, and the programmer, वो programmer के codes check करने के लिए a person will be appointed. Okay, so then there will be a proper procedure. कब appoint करना है, कौन कौन से code check करने के लिए appoint करना है, क्या क्या checklist बनाना जरूरी है. So those things are involved when you do it in a formal way. Okay. Then to provide information on testing, initiate corrective action, and to make decisions. So these all things are coming under your planning. Okay. Next comes your test analysis and design. Okay, test analysis and design. So here you have a test basis. Now, what is this test basis? To review test basis. What is this test basis all about? This test basis is nothing but it's a kind of document which help us to write test cases. Okay. Now, what is test cases? Anybody? What do you mean by a test case? We have done this in our software engineering chapter. Okay, what do you mean by a test case? I have shown you examples also. Test basis क्या होता है? It's a document, or you can say it's an information which is needed. You need them to write test cases. अगर आपको एक टेस्ट केस लिखना है तो आपको टेस्ट बेसिस जानना जरूरी है. Okay. Now, what does that test basis will have? Test basis will have all the requirements, like what all are the code to be tested. Okay, what all could be the inputs used, what all could be the condition which has to be there. So वो बेसिस बताता है टेस्ट बेसिस में, और वो देख के या फंक्शनैलिटी कौन कौन सा यूज किया जाएगा, तो वो देख के वो फंक्शनैलिटी के ऊपर हमको टेस्ट केसेस बनाने हैं. तो वो टेस्ट केस कैसे बनता है? वो टेस्ट बेसिस के डॉक्यूमेंटेशन के हिसाब से, वॉट एवर सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन इज प्रोवाइडेड इन द टेस्ट बेसिस, उसके हिसाब से हम टेस्ट केस बनाते हैं. नाउ व्हाट इज अ टेस्ट केस? टेस्ट केस क्या होता है? टेस्ट केस में what you do is you give input. Okay, then you give some condition. Fine, you give inputs, then you give some condition. First पहले आप scenario क्या होगा वो decide करते हो टेस्ट केस में. You will decide the scenario. Okay, and then according to the scenario, for example, I want to create a login page. Fine, so that is your I want to open my first page with login ID and password. Okay, so that is your scenario. So what will be the input used? Login and ID will be the input used. There will be certain conditions when you give the input, that when you are giving your password, it should be of 9 numbers या letters जो भी है वो condition. And then after putting the condition, you will see what is the actual result coming. Okay, so once you put the actual result, okay, and then you will check that with the expected result. Actual result and expected result अगर same होता है, then your testing is pass. Your last remark is either pass or fail. Okay, after putting your ID and password, if you are getting your output to be as expected output, your actual output is equal to your expected output, then you will say that your test case number 1 is pass. If it is not same, then it is fail. That fail is also called as incident. I think all this we have already done in software engineering. I very well remember. Okay, so here this is called as test case. So ये test case आपको करना जरूरी है. Okay, so here to review the test case, to the test basis is the information. See, they have given test basis is the information on which test cases are based, such as requirement, design specification, risk analysis, architecture, and interfaces. Okay, then you have test conditions to identify the test conditions. See, whenever you are making a test case, आपको conditions भी देना जरूरी है. You will not just give कि कुछ भी condition डाल दो, it will run. No, there should be some condition which you have to identify and you have to put and then check. Fine. Then design the test, and then to design test environmental setup. That is, testing can be either done, manual testing, or you can you make use of automated testing. Accordingly, the infrastructure or the tools will be given to you, or the resources will be allocated. Okay. So that also we have to analyze under your test analysis and design. Next comes your implementation. Okay, so in the implementation is where your actual work is done. Okay, यहाँ पर you make use of test suites. Now, what do you mean by test suites? Test suites are collection of test cases. For example, एक test case होने के बाद ही you will start with the next test case. That is, until and unless your first test case is not passed, you cannot start with the next test case. Okay, second test case. So because they are dependent. That is how, if you have 2-3 test cases running depending on each other, then that becomes your test suites. Okay, so for example, first page से आपको second page में जाना है, तो first page का login ID जब तक आपका create या proper नहीं होता है, you cannot go to the second page. Okay, so that is that collection, or that is collectively done. So that is why we call it as test suites. Okay, then checking test environment. executing test procedures using test execution tools, then checking actual results with expected results, reporting errors, and creating incident reports. I told you, what do you mean by an incident? Incident is when you have a difference between your actual output and your expected output, then it is termed as incident. So reports banate hain last mein. So ye jo reports which is considered as incident will go to incident report. Okay, and if there is any error which is coming, and you can sort it out, then you will put in the reporting errors. Okay, both are almost the same. It is almost the same, but if the incident is very high, and if the difference is coming very high, you are not getting the output at all, then you will put them in the incident report, so that that is given the priority. Fine. And then last one is evaluating evaluating exit criteria and reporting. So here, based on the risk assessment of the project, we will set a criteria for each test level against which we will measure the enough testing. So these criteria vary from project to project, also known as exit criteria. Matlab, we try to test as much as we can, right? But we cannot go on testing. We cannot go on testing. There is always a full stop wherein you feel कि हाँ this is enough of testing. अभी आगे जितना भी टेस्ट करो मुझे इतना ही रिजल्ट आने वाला है. Now I have to work on this. Okay, testing जितना भी आप टेस्ट करते जाओ, your result should either it is pass or fail. पर एक बार pass आ गया, you are leaving it. But एक बार fail आ गया, you are again testing, then it will not work. You have to give it a deadline. Okay, dead end रहना चाहिए जहां पर आपको लगता है कि yes अभी आगे टेस्ट करके कुछ फायदा नहीं है. I have to work on it. Okay, so you should always give a criteria like when to exit my testing. Okay, for example, out of 10 lines, if you get 8 lines passed, okay, your 8 lines are executed properly, 2 lines is a minor one, then you are just exiting. You are not waiting for the 2 lines to get corrected. But if the 2 line is very this thing, it is actually affecting your software, then you have to put them in the incidental part, incidental report, and then work on it. Okay, so that is what we call it as exit criteria. So evaluating that exit criteria is also a major task. So you have to work on it properly. You have to plan also accordingly. So here, evaluating exit criteria, how to check the test logs. Again, the exit criteria specified in the test planning to assess if more tests are needed, or if the exit criteria specified should be changed, or to write the test summary report for the stakeholders. Okay, now is test closure activities. So when to close the entire test activity, okay? So here the test closure activities are done when the software is delivered. The testing can be closed for other reasons also, when all the information has been gathered which are needed for testing, when the project is cancelled, when some target is achieved, when a maintenance release or update is done. So when to actually close the testing? See, exit criteria is just exiting from one testing. एक testing के बाद, so we have n number of testing or test cases which is to be performed. तो सब पूरा testing का process कब close करना है? That is, these are the reasons which they have given. Okay, so here this is how your process goes. First is test planning and control. Next is test analysis and design. Then you have implementation and execution. Then you have your exit criteria and reporting. And last comes your test closure activities. Hope you understood test suite, which I have told you. Yes, you can say it's a collection of test cases that are grouped, or they are together for test execution purposes. So execute करने के लिए you have to have all the testing going together. एक test के बाद दूसरा test. Okay, so test जब तक test case one, it is depending, So test case one जब तक वो success नहीं दिखाता है, we cannot work, तो वो पूरा अटक जाता है. So that is what you call it. Why that is why you call it as test suite. So for example, अगर आपको टेस्ट केस करना है फॉर रजिस्ट्रेशन, ओके, इट विल प्रोसीड ओनली विद द टेस्ट केस ऑफ लॉगिन. जब तक आप लॉगिन करते हो आप रजिस्टर नहीं कर पाओगे. सो जब तक आपका लॉगिन पेज टेस्ट प्रॉपरली नहीं होता है, यू कैन नॉट गो ऑन विद द रजिस्ट्रेशन. ओके, सो जब तक आप वैसे वो सूट पे टेस्ट नहीं करते हो, देन योर इंटीग्रेशन विल नॉट ऑल्सो वर्क प्रॉपरली. सो दैट इज हाउ इट. Okay, so test basis, test case, test suite. Okay, all these are the terms which you have to understand properly. Hope you are clear with all this thing. Test suite, test case, test basis. As of now we have done all this because it's a multiple choice, so such kind of questions can come. Okay. Now coming to psychology of testing. We can just read from here. When we test a product, and then we just read this one. They are just defining how the psychology is when we do the testing. See what you feel like. If you have written an code, okay, what your psychologically how you feel like, you as a programmer. See, beta testing and alpha testing is the testing which is done after the release of the product. Okay, that is acceptance testing. Prashant, your question. Okay, beta testing is a kind of acceptance testing which is done after your product is done. Okay, this testing, the process of testing which we are now discussing is within the testing part. जहां पर कोडिंग के बाद टेस्टिंग आता है और उसके बाद ही हम लॉन्च करते हैं. ओके, तो वो लॉन्चिंग के टाइम पे जो हम टेस्टिंग करते हैं दैट इज बीटा एंड अल्फा, where we are checking one testing is beta, where we are checking or the customer is checking whether my product is working or properly or not. Alpha is where we are, the programmer himself is checking whether it is working as per desired. Okay, so that is different. Okay, so psychologically, what you all feel that when a testing is done, मैंने अगर मैंने अपना कोड लिखा है, okay, as a programmer, I can be a tester also. A programmer can be a tester, but a tester cannot be a programmer. If you see, okay, hope you understood. If I am a programmer, I can test my code. Okay, so is that better that I have written a code and I am testing for myself, or you can appoint someone else who is actually the tester to check your code? What will be feasible? It doesn't matter. Okay. Others? नहीं, साइकोलॉजिकली सबको क्या लगता है कि अगर मैं प्रोग्रामर हूँ, थोड़े लोगों को क्या लगता है कि मैं टेस्ट करता हूँ, देयर इज नो रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ एनी टेस्टर, आई विल ओनली टेस्ट. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड, as a programmer, you have written the code. You might not get as many defects in your own program. अभी आप you take your own example, like you will never find a mistake in yourself, but you can find 10 mistake in others. Very because nobody will look into the mistake of their own. They try to minimize them, that way. But but अगर किसी और के बारे में कुछ डिफेक्ट निकालने के लिए बोलोगे तो you will get 10, or you can get more also. So that is what the psychology is. Okay, so it is always better in a way. Okay, as per the history of testing, it is always said that it is always better to get an outsider. Even your friend will be the best person to detect the defects from your code. Okay, if he's a programmer or a tester, but doing on your own will never get a good result. Hope you got what I mean to say. Okay, that is all psychological. Yes. Okay. So you can just go through all these points. I think I have not shared second unit. I'll share that. So you just go through. If you have any points to ask, you can ask. Not a problem. I'm not reading all this. You can read and understand. Okay. So as of now, what you have to learn is the points, like test basis क्या होता है, test suit, test case, all these things you learn properly. Okay, from approaches to testing, I will teach. Till that, you please read and understand. Okay. Again, there is a definition of testing. Starting से यही चल रहा है, definition of testing. And now I don't know what to explain. This is what it is. You can just read it. Okay. I'm telling you this chapter, the entire SQA is only this quality and testing, nothing else. Okay. So whatever we have learned, we are revising.